seeing basically the same questions.
Yes.
I think that would drive it home a little more.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity to have that team teaching. So, okay. Let's see. I think I ended basically with, after reading about, and I'm sorry I don't have the page number for this one, when it talked about Karen White, she was the veteran teacher. And she organized the first day to emphasize the housekeeping and management routines to maintain the decorum she feels is important to learning. And she's also instructing her students the routine about how the students will come to know and find things out in her class. And so I went back to that same question of how can you prepare your class next year? It also ties back into that Venn diagram, if you remember in part 1. Remember we left that part open? We had those routines that were kind of common, and then I said, okay, look back at that and think of those routines that you use that first day and start thinking creatively. Some of those you're going to have to just, we know we're housekeeping, now that we've looked at, we're going to have some of those management routines. But then start looking at how are you going to throw some of those real thinking routines in to start the year so the kids learn how to do this. What is acceptable in your room? How is discussion taking place? What kind of thinking is going to come forth? And even if you get to that point where you want to start the through line, have those questions up. You know, it was great, like Lou pointed out, when they came in and saw those quotes and questions and things, and really it's a wonderful tie-in to them getting to know you without, and we all face that. We want them to know us, but we also have a personal side that, remember, we're the adult, they're the child. There's some things they should really not cross that line. We always have to be very careful about how much you say about your own personal life with these kids. You know, how many times have we said, oh my gosh, you know, what we learned from them about their home. We go, okay. But that's a safe way for them to kind of get an idea of who you are without crossing that line. And I think that's very important. Any comments on that? Questions? Okay, I thought the next thing was going to be, okay, now, where do we get all this so we can put it up there? And what about the 20% rule on the wall? I know you guys. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, they're going, okay, I want to put all this up, but then the fire marshal comes through. So yeah, you're going to have to be a little creative with that. But sometimes look at what you've got up there now. What does it say about you as opposed to what you want it to say about next year? And start thinking of those things you can take down that really just serve a purpose of being decorative.
Wasn't there somewhere here I read where one teacher said, was it the guy teacher, the girl teacher, she said she took all of her rules off the wall, and they didn't have any more rules, but they had what you call, you know, their expectations rather than rules. I like that, you know. And I know there's always been a thing where you should sit down and ask the kids what rules should you implement in your classroom, let them help you come up with it. That's just time consuming.
Well, and
You know,
I understand in kindergarten, first grade, in the lower grades, I understand the need for the teacher to have the rules/expectations and then explaining it. As they get older, a little more discussion can go into it. Something that I try to use, the Promethean board, the flip charts. At the beginning of the year, the expectations are on the flip chart, procedures are on the flip chart. That way I can keep it posted, pull it up as I need to, but it's not taking up wall space that I want for thinking routines.
Yeah, and I don't think expectation or the verbiage expectation is inappropriate even for kindergarten.
No.
I mean, I really truly like the thought of these are our expectations rather than these are the rules.
Yeah.
You know, so it'll go across into discipline and everything. It's going to touch every aspect of how we look at what we do. So.
Isn't that what we use above the line, below the line? Those are our expectations.
Exactly.
I don't think any of us have rules posted anymore, but we have that up.
Well,
and I think
I think that is taken off in some rooms as opposed to others.
Oh.
That is something that is something we talked about when because she's been in this too, conversation. We talked about, let's look at that above the line and below the line even more, because I think it really
Ties in
does
beautifully.
tie in beautifully to the visible thinking. So she is working on beefing that up in the fall. I'm really kind of looking forward to, hopefully next fall, having a little more of our own control of our professional development, so that we can do those things just what we need, as opposed to just what a district-wide implementation is. Because I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of that, at least next year.
Okay, I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Going back to the whole teacher thinking, what is our building gonna look like this summer for us to be able to come in here and kind of get everyone set up for the visible thinking? Because it's basically very different than what we all have up now. Is it gonna be the same situation where we won't be able to get into that week event service, then we have 7 hours of meetings, and, or are we gonna have a little bit more freedom to come into the building this summer to go ahead and try to get our room set up a little bit, get these things up? Is there any foreseeable anything on that?
I look at two things that are on the horizon right now. One is when the Promethean boards come in, that we've ordered. And two, we don't know when GCA is going to clean, or